Thank you very much, Ishwendra. I am Ajit Pillai, the Regional Director for Morphisec, India and the SAARC region. Today, I'll be covering the topic Introduction to Proactive Prevention, a little bit different than many of the security OEMs would actually talk. So let me quickly get on to it and give you an overview. Currently, if you really look at the most strategic element in the security architecture, the legacy architecture primarily talks about everything around detection. So from detection comes remediation and prevention. So many of the attacks, if you really look at it, are primarily signature oriented, and based on that you detect, based on that you remediate. It would have heuristics, it would have machine learning, it would have behavioral analysis, indicators of compromise added to it, and recently the sandboxing technologies have also been added to it. And what it does is it kills the process, deletes the registry key, isolates the machine, and then the regular process happens. So the legacy architecture has got minimal focus on prevention. So greater reliance on detection, manual remediation, and then you have terminologies like MTTR and risk, and of course the spend. So when you really look at the current architecture, prevention has become the most strategic element in the security architecture. The reason being, the problem is only if you know some information is what you can. So it becomes reactive. So in the modern architecture, prevention is first to actually tackle the unknown kind of a sphere. Now here, it's a real-time prevention. You got zero MTTR. It's high fidelity. It is deterministic. No new knowledge is required. And then it prevents the unknown. So for that, this kind of an architecture, we have an innovation. So the innovation is moving target defense. So what is this moving target defense all about? This moving target defense is the reactive approach, which I talked earlier, has got predictable static targets. Now, when you really look at the moving target defense kind of a scenario, we are saying the static nature of computer networks and systems makes them easy to attack. It's always an asymmetry which has been there between defenders as well as attackers. The attackers always had one step above. And that's when Homeland Security came up with this in their NGCI Apex program, the Next Generation Cyber Infrastructure program, about moving target defense. Now, what's this moving target defense about? This moving target defense is more a proactive approach. It gives and makes the targets unpredictable. So thereby, the asymmetry which was there between an attacker and a defender is changed. So the defender isn't, almost in parlance, or you're better or much than higher than an attacker. So this is what the moving target defense is all about. So let's understand how this moving target defense works. The moving target defense, when an application is loaded, first what happens is you have the static predictable memory structure comes up, which is leveraged by many of these attackers to bypass the next generation AV and the EDR. And what happens is, in Morphisec kind of a scenario, it first morphs the application memory. It allows a legitimate code which runs seamlessly within the morphed application structure. And by doing that, it also creates a lightweight skeleton trap. And this is actually a kind of a decoy. So when there is some kind of anomaly which has been seen, the call to the original resources exposes and traps the attack. And that is how, if any kind of malicious use of memory is being done on the fly, it actually blocks it and catches that particular attack. And this is how moving target defense actually works. We will talk in detail of it. The prevention, so what does happen by doing this? You have prevention, it prevents 0 days, fileless attacks, exploits, and evasive malware with no prior knowledge. And that's important, you don't have any knowledge. It's deterministic. What do you mean by deterministic? It eliminates all kinds of false positive. It has got resilience, randomization of each process of the moving target. So it's got a morph, and the morph memory remains safe. Now, this is how the moving target works. And now let's look at what kind of coverage in a proactive threat prevention scenario, primarily the cyber kill chain, the two parameters, which is attack vectors and attack stages. The multiple stages we are talking about: infiltration, pre-execution or execution, by different attack vectors from attack spheres. Like it could be e-downloads, web, physical or network. It actually prevents. And any point in time where the memory is actually used, it actually blocks it then and there without any prior knowledge. Now let's also understand this is good. Now, what has happened in the marketplace? Really look at most of the evasive malwares which are currently there. They've been categorized broadly into ransomwares, banking Trojan, rats, miners, and downloaders. Now, when you really look at it, a remote access Trojan, what does a remote access Trojan do? It gives administration control to those attackers, right? And these are some of them without any prior knowledge we have already prevented, and it has been working, and it is the paradigm shift against what is there. With the kind of a data which is coming in, you're actually preventing using heuristics, signatures, sandboxing, behavioral, etc. Here, without any knowledge and just morphing the memory and making the life miserable, we have been able to do this. Now let's look a little bit more deeper into the exploits and fileless attack. Now this is a proactive threat prevention framework. Now in this, we just pick up one of them, like many of them would have been familiar with Bluekeep. The CVE is 20190708. Now, what does this Bluekeep does? It's a vulnerability in a remote desktop protocol, an RDP. The service of the more older versions of Windows OS and Bluekeep exploit has the potential to spread in a worm-like format and self-replicate without any kind of an authentication. Now, these are the techniques which has been used currently, and here with this MTD kind of an approach, we could actually prevent without having any kind of an information. Now let's look at the 0 days, because that's a big question mark. That's something which many of them, can 0 days be protected? Now in a 0 day, let's take an example of an Apple 0 day from 2009 Bitmayer campaign. So the Bitmayer ransomware, which actually started in August, it used to have a 0 day vulnerability impacting Apple software update service bundled with iTunes and iCloud for Windows. So what happens? This vulnerability has been existing from August, and in October, Apple actually figured this out. They came out with a patch, and there was an unquoted 0 day vulnerability which was said, and then the articles were published and the global knowledge starts expanding. But the moment you were having an MTD kind of a technology sitting within your infrastructure, this attack has already been prevented from August till October. And then the knowledge actually came out. So this is a kind of a proactive threat prevention for 0 days. It's a clear unknown protection with this kind of a scenario. Now, we have been talking about endpoint prevention all this while. We have talked about applications running. Unless and until you prevent and protect server, it actually doesn't have a complete picture. So you need to have a server which needs to be protected and all the endpoints. So in a proactive server kind of a protection scenario, Gartner has been talking about CWPP, the Cloud Workload Protection Platform, endpoint and server protection. So many of them have already a hardening and configuration, as per the Center for Internet Security guidelines. What are the things which needs to be done, what level of hardening is to be done, etc., etc. Then you also look at the network firewalling. It was not basic firewalling. We moved into a kind of a visibility level where you wanted to have zero trust in an initial setup for the Gartner's famous CARTA, which they talk about, continuous adaptive risk and trust assessment. So it's not just moving beyond the firewall. And these are already being deployed, and these are being looked after in creating a stack and an architecture for security in enterprises and as well as mid-market. Now, when you really look up, what are the must-haves? There are two must-haves which has been said. One is the application control and whitelisting. The other is exploit prevention. And you would have seen many of these application control whitelisting solutions already there, like app lockers, Windows device guard, app defense from VMware, etc. Now, look at the exploit prevention memory protection aspect. Now, in this, that is where MTD, that is moving target, actually comes in. And it protects it, lateral movement, supply chain attacks, data theft, ransomware, crypto miners, some of them which I've already said. And what is the advantage of looking at basically for servers? No CPU consumption, no required updates. You don't require virtual or physical, on-prem, cloud, be it on Linux or Windows, what kind of an OS. So this actually is in line with what Gartner has been saying, that run, build, and plan. Run is primarily, they talk about defense in depth. Build is like digital risk rating, and governance comes as part of the plan. So, and we all know that IT security is beyond black and white. So what are the right steps which needs to be done? So this is what is an outline which Gartner has been talking about. Now, when you really look at the kind of a situation we are all in today, remote workforce security has become a major aspect for most of the CIOs and CISOs. You need to deliver productivity and security. What are the 5 primary security challenges which has been there when a work from home kind of a situation? Working outside the corporate network, increased use of remote work application. You have been having personal computers which has been used for business purposes, large-scale VDI deployment, decentralized security team. All these are the major challenges which a remote workforce security throws at us. And offline endpoint security, no need for any kind of a corporate network. Virtual application hardening, prevent virtual app exploits, VDI or physical prevention. The beauty is an MTD, it's a very small agent. It's a 3 MB user agent, a user mode agent, which sits on desktops and laptops. And what it does is it just sits there and does its job, and it doesn't keep alerting you. Only when there is a kind of an infection or kind of an advanced malware attack, it starts giving an alert and just says that Morphisec has prevented it. It is not that you will have to immediately go and do some remediation activities. It just prevents it. And there is no data collection. It is deterministic prevention. No manual remediation at all, right? So when you really look at the strategic value proposition, the maximum risk reduction between a reactive and a proactive approach. In the reactive approach, as I talked earlier, it has got many of the solutions which has been already deployed, like an antivirus or a next-gen antivirus or an EDR solution. There, it's reactive because after a breach, then it requires discovery. From discovery, then you need to really figure out what needs to be done so as to ensure that it has been remediated. In a proactive approach using moving target defense, it's pre-breach. Instantaneously it has been blocked. Wildest prevention coverage prevents evasive, unknown attacks, and defense in depth. You're not actually blocking everything, but you are ensuring that unknown unknowns which have been there, which has been prevented. Low TCO, empower security team, reduce the patching frequency, and it goes on. The strategic value proposition increases. From a business standpoint, if you really look at it, proactive prevention against fileless attacks, any kinds of exploits, evasive malware, 0-day, and operational serving, it's a great saving. Rapid time to value. You don't need to put more skill sets. Empower security teams, and business enablement happens. Now, as a gist, I would say, in a span of just 3 to 4 years, we have got close to 5 million plus endpoints, which is protected and prevented all across the globe. And we have got close to 500 plus enterprises. The biggest banks in India, like S Bank, RBL Bank, they're already deployed close to 35 to 40,000 endpoints. And it's like very simple. It's like almost, we have 20,000 endpoints deployed in a flat 12 hours. Now, what is our acceptance in the marketplace? With that, I would like to summarize. We have a strategic alignment with Microsoft, and with the current scenarios, people are looking at Microsoft, and you could see that Gartner endpoint protection platform, Microsoft is the leader. They already have a Defender AV which is embedded with them. And the market is today talking about EDR, and they also have a plan to go to an EDR in many of the customers. If not, they've already gone. But the strategy is to actually add Morphisec right now before you move into an EDR kind of a solution where you can actually, majority of the threat vectors can be prevented. So this is an approach which we are a Microsoft Intelligence Security Association partner. They have been actually advocating us, and we have got close to a lot of customers who have moved away from the traditional AV to a Windows Defender kind of a play, if not today, tomorrow. And they're also looking at Morphisec to prevent the unknown unknowns. So with that, let me emphasize once again, an advanced endpoint protection prevent the most dangerous cyber attacks, the fileless attacks, evasive malware, in-memory exploits in 0 days. It is an endpoint protection solution, prevention solution. It prevents the advanced threats that bypass antivirus and detection solutions, which is already there. And server protection. It protects and safeguards your most valuable assets using client, without using any kind of a client-grade software. You don't need to just keep communicating. And last but least, it's available in Azure platform, cloud protection, critical Azure, AWS, and various hybrid cloud workloads. So thank you very much, and open for questions.